Are you ready for high-speed motorsports talk about your local short track? You've come to the right place. Get ready to hear from some of the top stars of Seekonk Speedway right here on the Race Day Rewind podcast series. We'll hear it all, from pure excitement to disappointment of coming so close, the frustrations of contact on the track, and the thrill of winning a race or a championship. The Seekonk Speedway podcast series is a production of Souza Media. Now let's get to the show. The Seekonk Speedway podcast series is a production of Seekonk Speedway and Souza Media. For more information on Souza Media, visit kylesouza.com. And for more information on Seekonk Speedway, visit seekonkspeedway.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Seekonk Speedway podcast series here as we get ready to recap with another edition of the Race Day Rewind Report. This coming, of course, from our races that took place on June 4th and 5th over the last course of the weekend here. Actually, that'd be the 3rd and the 4th. I'm off by one date. June 3rd, the second Fast Friday race of the 2022 season, and June 4th, we were back on track with our NASCAR Saturday program. Two great nights of racing, and Mother Nature was nice to us for one of the first times this year on both nights, and some great racing on the track over the course of those evenings as well. Again, if you're just listening to the podcast for the first time, I don't know where you've been, but welcome to the podcast series. We've got a great following here in the podcast, and look forward to this edition as well. We're going to try to shorten up the editions a little bit to get things kind of a little bit tighter for you. Last couple weeks, myself and Sam Tully have really gone into some deep discussion, and I'm sure some of you liked it, but we want to let you kind of have your opinion in here and your say as well. This week, we're going to welcome Sam back in our next segment. He's going to walk us through the NASCAR Saturday events with myself from June 4th. And to open the show, though, we're going to talk about our second Fast Friday show of the 2022 season. That coming up on June 4th. June 3rd. We're off to a rough start here on this edition. June 3rd was Fast Friday. June 4th was NASCAR Saturday. We're going to talk about the Fast Friday races from June 3rd. And we're going to welcome in Mr. Brady here, our brand new announcer on Fast Friday. Similar to Sam, Brady's jumped in for the first time in his career here at the Third Mile this year, and he's joining Kevin in the booth on Fast Friday. Brady's going to help me to walk through some of these results from Fast Friday and kind of give you a little bit of insight on what we're thinking there. Before we welcome him in, let's talk about those results. Darren Krantz Jr. picked up his second straight Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandit victory to pick up the season in the number 31 in their 15-lap feature, so two in a row, and impressive fashion for him to be able to do that. Melania Shawowski finished second. Ryan Venice Jr. was third. Bryson Robideau had a great run, finishing fourth. And in fifth spot was Sam Macedo, the Green Hornet. So Darren Krantz Jr. is 2 for 2 in the Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero Bandits. Great runs for Shawowski and Venice. Bryson Robideau, big shout out to him. He had a great run in his just second ever race, finishing in fourth position. And the Green Hornet, Sam Macedo, rounding out the top five. For those who missed it last year, Sam won 7 races in this division. Darren Krantz Jr. went on to win the championship, but Sam won 7 races, so I'm expecting him to get back to victory lane. Right now, though, it's tough for anybody to beat Darren Krantz Jr. in that division. When you swap over to the other Fast Friday Bandolero division, also sponsored by the Seekonk Grand Prix, that would be the Bandolero Outlaw class. And a similar story there, just a different name at the top of the leaderboard. In that one, it's Chase Sylvia making it 2 for 2. And that's a whole nother story. Chase picking up his first career win in week 1. He follows it up with his second straight in week number 2. Bradley Strickland finished second, and Andrew Gomes rounded out the podium. And I mentioned those two names from Fast Friday finishing second and third. The top 3 drivers in the Bandolero Bandits were the top 3 drivers in both weeks so far this season. So Chase Sylvia won both. But Andrew Gomes finished second in week 1, third in week 2, and Bradley Strickland was third in week 1, second in week 2. So there's a couple things that we want to touch on here. And Brady, to welcome you into the show for the first time here. First of all, thanks for being on. And second, these Bandolero divisions, two opposite ends of the spectrum. Krantz, a proven winner and champion, coming out strong. Really no surprise to me there. But this Outlaw division with Chase Sylvia as well, really opening the season with some dominating work behind the wheel of his car, and that's pretty impressive to me so far.
Well, Kyle, first of all, thank you for having me. Hopefully what is going to be the first of our many chats here on the Action Track podcast. But you're absolutely right. Darren Krantz, I'll start with him, is a proven champion, out of Huntington Station, New York. A really good kid who and watching him these past 2 weeks, he is a very intelligent driver. And I mean by that is that he picks his poison, and he picks when he's going to strike at very key parts of each race, right? He crosses over very well, he cuts to the inside very well, and he's able to get a lead. And once he gets the lead, at least we've seen in these past 2 weeks, he does not let it up. So he's continuing that success line here that we saw last year. And you touched upon Sam Macedo as well. He didn't just win 7 races. He won 7 races in a row. And that doesn't happen, all right? Like, it doesn't take a racing expert to realize that doesn't happen. So I think the fact that Krantz was able to win last year and fight off Macedo winning 7 in a row, which equates to just about the entire summer. And Krantz still coming in and winning, and he's right off the bat. Like, he didn't slow down. And again, a kid that all he does is race. He makes that trip from New York every single weekend. So he is off to a phenomenal start. And then we want to continue here, segue into phenomenal starts. Chase Sylvia. He's a kid that nobody really, I felt at least, nobody really expected him to find himself in victory lane, at least this early in the year. He was one of our names to watch, right? Could maybe sneak in a win, a few top 5 finishes, but, if you'd have tell me that Chase Sylvia was going to win the first 2 weeks of Fast Friday racing, I'd have called you insane. Yeah. Because we have guys, and particularly Bradley Strickland and Brett Robideau, who are very good drivers. They're experienced drivers, although they're only in the Bandolero division. I mean, again, they're smart. But what Chase has done is that when he gets into the inside, I have found, he doesn't let anybody pass him on the outside. And he's scrappy. He's not afraid to run up, and I mean, he hasn't really, made any contact, and he hasn't hit anybody on purpose. But he's not afraid to, make other drivers second guess themselves. And I really think that that's the most important part of his game is just trusting his instincts and just going through. And again, once, very similar to Darren Krantz, once he gets a lead, he does not give it up.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment on both of those drivers. And I think we're going to hear their names many, many more times as the season goes along, specifically Krantz, in my opinion. But I'm very impressed with Chase Sylvia. Of course, coming out of the Sylvia family, many of you know Pepe is in that family. And if you don't know that name, you're going to get to know that name again here at some point on the podcast, I'm sure. But Chase has been very impressive, as well as Darren. And also in these Bandolero divisions, you mentioned Brent Robideau struggled in the first couple weeks. We'll see if he can come out and rebound in week 3. There's a couple other guys in these Bandolero divisions that you look at and say, are they going to come out and kind of hit fire at one point? Colin Van Ness, Mike Hannafin. Are they going to get back on track here after a tough week this past week and get back up to the front of the field next week? How about in the Outlaws? Brent Robideau, guaranteed to me. You're going to see him up there at the front before long. There's a lot of storylines there in the Bandoleros, and that's what makes youth racing so exciting at Seekonk. So they'll both be back this week for another 15-lap feature for each divisions. That race was also round 1 of the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown for both. So Darren Krantz and Chase Sylvia not only winning the race, but they win round 1 of the Everett's Triple Crown. Let's move on to our Everett's Auto Parts Sport 4, speaking of Everett's Auto Parts. And Crystal Murray is 2 for 2 on the season behind the wheel of the 38. A very impressive start for her. Crystal crossed the line second, and some of you may be confused as to what happened here and why she won. Christian Herman picked up the win when he crossed the line on the track. However, Christian did not pass the post-race inspection. He had a ride height issue in inspection. They have a certain height that these cars have to be off the ground after the race in order for them to be legal. He was not legal in the number 9. Therefore, he was disqualified from his finish. And with the disqualification, that means whoever finished second is the winner. And in this case, it is Crystal Murray behind the wheel of the Quick Oil number 38. She is 2 for 2 on the season. A very impressive start behind the wheel. Second place in the Sport 4 feature after the final results were tallied went to Henry LaValle, his best run in a long time. Third place to Tyler Duhanchik. Fourth place was Jared Freitas, and Taylor Bowser finished the top 5. So Crystal Murray going to try to make it 3 for 3 coming up this week. The Sport 4s will be moving into their round 1 of the Triple Crown coming up on Friday night, June 10th. In the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Pure Stocks, it was a similar story with a veteran at the front of the field. It's Greg Perry, the two-time and defending division champion, taking down his first win of the season. Perry started on the outside pole and, for all intents and purposes, dominated this behind the wheel of the number 0. So Perry picks up his first win of the year for the former champion. Nice start to the season after struggling in week 1. They had some type of mechanical failure. In week 2, hallelujah for Perry. Jumps out to the lead, and it is Greg Perry picking up the win. Second was Danny Massa. Jeremy Lambert finished in third. 2 podiums so far for him. Off to a strong start. Mike Hendricks was fourth, and Jordan Threlfall rounded out the top 5 in the pure stocks. I guess we'll call it the bad luck moment of the race was Mike Rotundo and another driver getting together after Mike had put an impressive start to the race together behind the wheel of the number 12 and finished at the bottom of the top 10. Mike Rotundo, another name I expect to see up at the front here before long in the Helger South Coast Power Equipment Pure Stocks. And Brady, I'll welcome you back in here to chat about the next Pit Stop Legend Cars. 2 races so far in the books. Week 1, it was Brendan Hammond picking up the win. Week 2, it's Devin Deshays. And Hammond finished third in week 2, so he's right up there as well. Reese Bogue was on the podium in both races. So Deshays, Bogue, and Hammond, clearly the top 3 so far in this division through 2 weeks. But 2 completely different races here. And you came into this as a new announcer in the first week and watched what we've seen over the Legend Cars over the years can happen with these incidents. However, man, great race in week 2 for them to come out like this and put on a heck of a show.
Yeah, I was ready to have a Target pickup order for a sleeping bag after the first, because, oh my goodness. And that's actually, Kyle, why the Legends, again, I don't have any complaints about any division so far. But the Legend division, easily one of my favorite divisions across our Fast Fridays, because of the fact that these cars are very, very hard to control. You have to be constantly on the wheel, right? It's more of an old-fashioned car, I suppose. And so the fact that, let's take Reese Bogue, for example, because this is a driver I've gotten to know, in the pits, and he's a really good kid. He sits third in the point standings right now, but Reese drives the Legend, and he also drives, I believe he drives a late model as well.
Correct.
So I think what makes him so good is that he's able to balance driving both cars, and he's very smooth, right? He doesn't struggle in the Legend after coming off of the late model. He doesn't struggle in the Legend or struggle in the late model, come on in the Legend, whatever. But when after Friday night, excuse me, last week, I admired the performance of Devin Deshays, and I think this is a kid that we're going to want to keep our eyes on, simply because he battled back. He started, I believe he started top 10. I don't remember exactly what pole he started in, but he was able to come back. He was in second for a while, and it was those last couple laps he overtook Hammond for the lead, I believe, and he's just a really fast car, and he knows what he's doing. He sits atop the point standings. He's got 98 points this season. So he was a kid who we had said we're going to keep our eyes on, and could not only just win several races this year, but win the entire division. And it looks to be that way so far. So you're going to ask me, who do I like early thus far? I'm picking Devin Deshays, because once he gets on a roll, right? It's really hard to put out a fire that he starts. And again, 2 podium finishes thus far. He is really on a roll.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with Devin, and in a way, not surprised. That car, of course, fans will remember that Wilco Brunn drove last year and won a ton of races and went on to win the championship. So we know that car has speed, but Devin has never won at Seekonk in a Legend going into this year, and obviously grabbing his first one on Friday night. A lot of storylines in this division, too. It's not just the guys that are running at the front. You look at the middle of the pack in this division. Mason Tessier has been strong with speed in the first couple weeks. The luck hasn't been there for him. There's some others as well that have been off to a good start. We've had 27 drivers compete in this Legend Cars division in the first 2 weeks of the season, and expecting that to grow as the season goes along, and looking forward to seeing how that all shakes out. Brady, before we let you go, Is there anything else on Fast Friday that we're watching here? Of course, moving into this Friday night's racing, June 10th. It's going to be a heck of a race tonight again. We've got the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown for both the Everett's Auto Parts Sport Fours and the Nick's Pit Stop Legends. So 2 30-lap races coming up on Friday night. And I'm looking for similar stories here in these divisions with the guys and girls that are running at the front.
Well, you got the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown, which is a very, very exciting time of year. But I am looking forward to the Pure Stocks because I feel that this is a division where you're not going to predict who's going to win. Because we had week 1, we had Bill Schwannard win. Week 2, we had Greg Perry win. And somehow Jeremy Lambert is in first place in the standings. So and Danny Massa is second, who he's run, Jeremy too. They've both run 2 great races thus far. But I'm looking forward to see how Jeremy Lambert is going to bounce back. He finished second last week, and he leads in points. So again, he has, I believe he has 2 podium finishes. So I'm curious to follow that division and see if Lambert can find himself in victory lane, if Bill Schwannard can find himself back in victory lane. I'll even take a guy like Sam Lincoln, who had a strong race last week, and nobody was really expecting him to finish a top 10, I think. And now he sits 8th in the point standings. We have Jim Riley, who finished in 3rd place week 1. He sits with 46 points. So just several names that I'm keeping my eye on, and I want to see how they bounce back heading into week 3.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting storylines on Fast Friday and also on NASCAR Saturday, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But overall, again, Friday night, June 10th, Fast Friday is going to return to the track. Round 3 for their season. Weather looks good as of this recording, so hoping that sticks that way. $10 for adults in the front gate. You cannot beat that entertainment. Really, you can't on Fast Friday. And it's going to be a heck of a show again. Again, 2 Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown races. One for the Legend cars, 30 laps. And we will have one for the Everett's Auto Parts Sport Fours, and that one will be 30 laps as well. Of course, the Pure Stocks are back, presented by Helger's Power Equipment for 25 laps. And as I mentioned earlier, the 2 Seekonk Grand Prix Bandolero divisions are back. Brady, appreciate the time, and we'll chat with you next week here about our Fast Friday results coming up from June 10th.
Thank you, Kyle. See you soon.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on this edition of the Race Day Rewind Podcast Report, and then we are going to welcome in Sam Tully, one of our other announcers that works with Kevin on NASCAR Saturday. Once we chat with Sam, we'll wrap the show with a driver guest here on this edition of the Race Day Rewind. Stick with us to listen to the show. All right, welcome back from the break on the latest edition of the Seekonk Speedway Race Day Rewind Report. Before we get going with our next segment, want to thank a couple of our sponsors for the track that are sponsoring some of our NASCAR Saturday divisions. Chaz Auto Body sponsoring the Sport Truck division in 2022. You can visit them for all of your latest auto body needs. Helger's South Coast Power Equipment sponsors our Sportsman division on Saturday night. Also, our Fast Friday division on Fast Friday. They're located in Westport, Mass. They have all the latest power equipment, so you can check them out. And, of course, some of our other sponsors that we're talking about on this week's edition of the podcast. Everett's Auto Parts is part of the Triple Crown Series. This week, the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown Series went to the Pro Stock division. We will get there in a few moments. Before we get to the Pro Stocks, though, want to back up and start with the Chaz Auto Body Sport Trucks as we recap the action from Saturday night, June 4th. Nice clean and green race for the Sport Trucks here. A couple mishaps here and there, but a nice solid run for them. The trucks have been great this year. They've been really competitive. I could really name 5, 6, 7 drivers that have a good chance at winning each week, depending on how the lineup kind of shakes out for the start of the race and how the racing shakes out on the track. But this truck division's been very, very competitive, and we're 4 weeks into the truck season. It was Barry Shaw Jr. picking up the win in week 1. Mike Cavallero won the second race of the season. Rick Martin picked up his 101st career track victory in the third week of the season. And in week 4, this recent Saturday night race, Mike Duarte, former champion in this division, gets out front early, posts the fastest lap of the race, and posts the trophy at the end of it, picking up the win in the 25-lap Chaz Auto Body Sport Truck feature. Very impressed with Mike so far this year. I mentioned he's a former champion of this division. He's no slouch, though. Let me tell you, this guy has really, really been there the last couple of years, and been there in general to the point where at the end of the race, I mean, it's time for Mike Duarte to kind of show his name and get his truck up near the front of the field. A fast truck there, and he picks up the win here on this night on Saturday. A very impressive victory for him. Second was Brittany Campbell, and Brittany's been hot so far this year. I mean, hot and heavy on the track behind the wheel of that number 8 truck. I've been very impressed with what she's been able to do so far in 2022. Coming out and really, kicking butt in this division. She's been very competitive. And, we hope to get her on the podcast here at some point to kind of run us down on what the heck is going on here and how she's able to come out and have this much success. So another second place finish for Brittany Campbell. Rick Martin followed up that win from a week before in third. Amy Arsenal was fourth. A nice solid top 5 for her after some struggles to start the year. And I mentioned Barry Shaw. He finished 5th here. We'll welcome in Sam Tully to join me here. And Sam, the Sport Trucks again, off to a good start on the season. And Mike, been there. And this time he finally is able to just kind of break through and get to victory lane.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks so much for having me on again. But yeah, you said it. Took the words out of my mouth. Mike Duarte finally breaking through. Started off the season with a couple of top 3 finishes. And then in either week 2 or week 3, got caught up in an incident, finished further down the running order. But yeah, finally broke through to hold the checkered flag in victory lane. The last couple of top 3 finishes he's had, he's been right there, basically just having to watch the rear bumper of the battle for the lead, and nothing really he could do about it. So finally, he said the truck felt as good as it ever has this season. He really walked away from that 3-car battle for second between Campbell, Arsenal, and Martin towards the end of that feature. But yeah, really great showing for that 50 truck. Mike Duarte finally getting his first win, in my opinion, which was long overdue, just as far as the speed that he's shown early on this season.
Yeah, and again, we're only in week 4 here, so it's hard for me to say, who some of the favorites are going to be, especially with this playoff system. But I think in this division alone, we kind of see some of the favorites rising to the top here. And I think it's a little bit more clear, really, in my opinion, in these divisions. So Mike Duarte, again, the big winner. Brittany Campbell's off to a heck of a start in 2022. I expect to see her at the front of the field again this coming Saturday night. And I expect her... I'm telling you, I expect her to get to victory lane here before long. I don't think it's going to be too much longer before we're talking to Brittany Campbell in victory lane as a feature winner so far in 2022. So a good start. Brittany is off to a strong start as far as the finishes go. And you take a look at the early championship standings in the Sport Trucks. Rick Martin leads Brittany by 7 points. 7 points. Rick Martin ahead of Brittany Campbell. So the 8th place position in that playoff is tied right now between Lenny Guy and Tom Scully. So that's going to be something we'll watch over the course of the year. But Mike Duarte's the winner on this specific night. Let's move on to the late model division. In their first race of the Triple Crown Series came the week before. It was Vinny Renegado who won the Triple Crown race. This week, though, we're back to a regular 30-lap race for this division. And a heck of a start to the season so far for a rookie contender last year who's kind of come out of the box strong here in 2022 in his sophomore season, really. That's Roddy Burns, and Jacob picked up his first win of the season. We talked to him last week right here on the podcast, and he was excited with the speed that they had so far in 2022. And in this race alone, there's really not much way to describe it other than a hell of a race. I mean, this is just a really good show, racing for the lead at the front of the field between Rowdy Jacob Burns and Mark Jennison. Jennison is known in the course of his career to not be afraid to mix it up with the best of the best. He mixed it up with Rowdy. There was a lot of contact. Flat reality of it. A lot of contact racing for the lead. They did it with contact, but rather cleanly at the same time. If that makes any sense at all, the contact they made was pretty clean. And in the end, Burns picks up his first career win in the late models. Really, again, I think, Sam, as you mentioned, this is long overdue. I know you just came into this, the realm of the track here early this year. But Rowdy's won in our Legend cars on Friday. He's been strong in the late models last year, and he's really shown a lot of speed this year and has come out of this box where, he's a contender to me. I mean, he's had a strong start to the year, and he finally breaks into victory lane. He's third in points, only 2 points behind. It's been a consistent start for him, and impressed to see him go out there on Saturday and beat Jennison and really, It was like a brawl, in my opinion. I mean, they made a lot of contact there, Sam, for Burns to get into victory lane.
Certainly. Well, as the age-old saying goes, rubbing is racing, and that was certainly put on in full display for us between Burns and Jennison. But that's what you want to see, right? That's what people think about when they think of short track racing. It's really no fun if everyone's keeping 2, 3, 4 feet apart from each other for an entire feature. So you're going to get some of that contact. And when you can pull it off cleanly, lap after lap after lap, with swaps for position, especially when it's a battle for the lead, I mean, that's what you get your money's worth and more for. So to see Jennison and Burns go at it, keep it clean, crossover moves, of course, that move that ultimately got Burns the lead, which he was able to hold on to for the win. That's just classic, good, hard, late model racing. So really good to see, again, a newcomer more or less to the late model format be able to show his stuff and race with and beat a vet, Mark Jennison, right? He's traveled the region and done ACT and ran late models for years and years. So to see a young gun be able to get out there on track and pull off the win over such a talent-filled field of late models, not just Jennison, but, you look at the list of other people down the running order, really great, strong finish from a young late model driver who, of course, knows how to win at the third mile and legends and whatnot, but really excited to see what Burns can deliver for the rest of the season and beyond.
Yeah, I think Roddy's going to be a contender here, especially as we get down into the playoffs. I think he's really going to be one we're going to have to watch. He's a little bit of a dark horse, and I say that lightly because dark horse is a term really where, you expect these other people to not be contenders. But I expect Rowdy to be right there. But he is a dark horse to me. I think in this late model division, you got Jerry DiGasperi, Vinny Renegado, Richie Murray. I mean, this late model division is very, very competitive, and I call him a dark horse. I know he's got speed. I know he can win now. He's proven that. But when it comes down to the thick of the thick in September in this playoff system, it's going to be real dang hard to bet against Vinny Renegado, Jerry DiGasperi, and Richie Murray. They're the other 3 winners this year. Burns joins them. They've been consistent. They've been right there. You look at what Richie Murray did on Saturday night. Had a really bad night for all intents and purposes. Started at the rear. He got involved in a couple mix-ups on the track. He still got a top 8 finish. I looked up at the end of the race and saw him still 8. I mean, he finds his way to get the best he can on that specific night. So, lot to watch there in the late models. I mentioned the points. Very close. Jerry DiGasperi leads the Renegado by 1 point. Burns is 2 point back, and Richie is 10. So, top 4 separated by 10 points. Chase Belcher's 5th, only 13 back, and he's been right there as well. So, we'll watch the late models coming up this week. 30 laps on tap for the June 11th show. Let's move on to the Helger South Coast Power Equipment and the Sportsman division. And, man, new week, same song, very confused. Ed Perry and Doug Benoit get together. They weren't racing for the lead. They were racing for second while Ed Perry was racing for the lead. So, they're racing for the lead in all intents and purposes on the last lap. Ed Perry, Doug Benoit get together. They both spin. And Adam Petty, who leads most of this race, is on pole for the restart. Craig Pianca to the outside. We talked a couple weeks ago. Craig Pianca had won 2 of the first 3 races. Off to a heck of a start. And boom. Like a snap of a finger, he's on the outside of the front row in this late restart. Green-white checker. And he outdrives Adam Petty to win the race. I am so impressed with the Purple Passion so far this year. We talked to Craig in the division preview, which was, say, a month and a half ago. And he was excited for the season. I mean, he felt like they had a lot of speed the end of last year. And Sam, he's the winner. 3 out of 4 here in the Sportsman. And I think the exciting part for me about the Sportsman is the first 4 weeks, you do not know who is going to win that race until they cross the line. And I think that's kind of a cliche in racing. Got to finish all the laps. A lot of times we can kind of tell you with 5 to go who's probably going to win the race. But Saturday, the Sportsman feature, and we'll get to the Pro Stock race in a minute, I didn't know until they crossed the line who was going to win. And I think that's what makes it so exciting for me. And I know that's what makes it so exciting for the fans who are listening to us here and also at the track on race day.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to call it an anomaly or what, but it doesn't matter who you are in the top 5. If you're starting in those first couple of rows with 5 or even fewer laps to go at the end of a feature, and if Craig Pianca is in the mix, you better be prepared to drive the wheels off that thing, and you still might not even be able to hold off Pianka because that thing is hooked up. I mean, he can put that car wherever he wants and pull off the pass. I mean, he started on the outside of Adam Petty on that last race restart. I don't know how many laps there were at that final restart.
Oh,
Do you
green
remember?
white checker. A green white checker.
Yeah,
I mean, this is right at the end.
Yeah, so I mean, 2 laps, 2 laps is plenty of time for Pianka to pull off that move, just based on how good that car is. It's good down low, it's good up top, and he's done that a couple of times this season. Late passes for the lead. So again, if Pianka's in the top 5 with a handful of laps to go, especially on a restart. I mean, I know those restarts are anyone's game, but right now it's the odds favorite is Pianka if he's in the mix up there towards the front.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think talking to Pianka on the preview podcast going into the year, Craig said, hey, Chad Baxter had such an impressive year last year. I don't think anybody can match it. Well, guess what? I mean, he's matching it. I'm very impressed with what Pianka's been able to do here to come out and win 3 or 4. I want to get to the Pro Stock race here before we talk your ears off here on the podcast, but Pianka's off to a heck of a start. 3 wins in 4 weeks. Second place in this one was Adam Petty. Good run for him. Led a lot of the laps. Just couldn't quite get there at the end to get the job done. Pepe, Jim Sylvia was third. That's a story for another week as well. Coming back after all these years away, running 3 wide on the outside. I know a lot of you listening may be older and you may have watched Pepe run. Sam hasn't. I did as a kid. That is classic Pepe. Like, I watch the WWE once in a while, and you hear the guys on the commentating say, like, that is vintage Edge or vintage Rob Van Dam or something. That was vintage Pepe. Like, that was a throwback to Pepe's younger days. And he's definitely not getting any younger, but he's also not giving up the racing. And I appreciate that about him. He's put a lot of work into his son's efforts, and Chase winning 2 races and 2 starts in the Bandolero Outlaws this year. His other son, Jake Sylvia, in the Legend Cars. I mean, he's done a lot of work to get them where they are racing-wise today. So very impressed to see what Pepe's done and give him a lot of credit to finishing 3rd. Colby Lambert was 4th. Steve Axon was 5th in the 25-lap feature for the Sportsman on Saturday. Let's get to the Pro Stock race. There's a lot to unpack here, Sam. And let's start with the first lap. The first 2 Pro Stock races of the year, we saw a lot of wrecking, right? I think reality has set in that this division was a little rough the first couple weeks. A lot of accidents. And again, on the first lap, we wreck more cars. I don't know what is going on here. I don't understand why these guys are wrecking so much equipment. And flat out reality of it is, it's one of our lower car counts at the track in general. I just don't understand why with 12 or 13 cars out there, here comes a Kyle Souza hot take. Why are we wrecking cars when there's only 12 cars on the track? I could understand if we had 24 out there. Okay, the track's small, it's clogged up, we're wrecking equipment. Why are we wrecking equipment with 12 cars? And I don't understand it. Obviously, it needs to be solved because these cars cost a lot of money, and all of racing costs a lot of money. That they don't need to be wrecking these things weekly. But that's besides the point. What the heck's going on wrecking-wise? Why are they doing this? I don't know. Maybe we can get a driver on at some point to give us some reality perspective. Sam, this finish was everything you could have ever imagined. I mean, for a 60-lap race, round 1 of the Everest Triple Crown, 3rd place was literally almost a half a lap behind at the end of this race. And it didn't matter. It really didn't matter. If you look at the front, Mike Brightman picks up his 2nd win of the year. Dave Darling finishes 2nd. And the storyline here is simple. Mike Brightman is a guy that 2 or 3 years ago, it felt to me at least, was ready to give up. I mean, he wasn't running well. He was struggling. They were working really hard. It just wasn't working out. And there was that point where I can guarantee you in his head, he probably said to himself, man, this is getting sickening. I mean, I'm not winning. I'm not running in the front. It was hard. He has come out of the box so strong this year to get 2 wins in 4 races, or is it 4 races? Yeah, 3 Pro Stock races, I think. Tommy Adams won. Brightman won opening day. Somebody else won, Sam. Help me out. Who else won?
We're down a couple of races. Well, we're really down 1 race because we got an entire Saturday night program in, except for a Pro Stock due to a rain delay. And then we lost a week across the board. So everyone has 4 races in the books, except the Pro Stocks just have 3. So Mike Brightman winning 2 of them, Tommy Adams winning week 2.
Okay. So Brightman's got 2 wins in 3 races. I don't know. From somebody that's watched Pro Stock Racing and Seekonk Speedway for years now, this is one of the better finishes I've seen. And it literally, to me, more so than what went on the track and the exciting action with David trying to cross him over and Brightman trying to block the bottom and getting loose and hanging on. And everything that happened there with a little bit of contact and really overall a clean, hard race for the win. Besides that point, this was just a hell of a show. I mean, reality has set in the last couple years. And here's another Kyle Souza hot take. The Pro Stock division's been boring. Reality of it. I mean, it's just been boring. Dave Darling's gone out there and kicked everybody's butt every single week. And I know some of the fans got frustrated and you know, they've been a little bit bored in this Pro Stock race. For all intents and purposes, in some of these races over the last year or so, I was bored because David got to the front so fast. And it's not a knock on David. I'm not knocking them. They've been incredible. They've been so impressive, and they've really been like the Tom Brady of the Pro Stocks here. He's just been unbeatable. But I am so excited to see a guy like Mike Brightman really stand up here with a fast car this year and go out there and beat him in an extra distance race. I cannot tell you the last time I saw somebody beat Dave Darling in an extra distance race this way. Brightman beat him. He caught him, and he didn't pass him. And again, to me, big deal. I mean, this is a big deal with this playoff system the way it is this year. This just proved to you that Mike Brightman can hold off Dave Darling for 15 laps in a row with Dave Darling right on his bumper. And Josh, big deal to me. I think it's a big, big deal with what happened here on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Kyle. Are we seeing a bit of a chink in the armor of the 4 years running Pro Stock champion?
I mean, it could be. I don't know. I'm not counting him out, Sam, because of what I've seen him do. You know, again, he is the Tom Brady of the Pro Stock division. And I think anybody that's here in New England knows that over the last 15 years, how many times did you count out Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and the New England Patriots and you said they're done? I mean, they're just cooked. They're not able to do it. You know, that they're just wasted. They're all done. Break them up. You know, I have not heard anybody call to break up the 52 team. And I'm not saying that that's even a relative possibility because that's not reality of it. But, no. I mean, he's going to win. Dave Darling's going to win. In fact, I'm picking him to win the next race. I think he's done. I think he's done dealing with the crap as far as getting beat on the track. You know what I mean? He's probably thinking to himself, hey, I got to step up here. I got to kick their rear end again. I got to go out there and win. And I expect him to do it. You know, I do expect him to win here pretty quickly. By the end of June, I'm going to go out on record here and say by the end of June, Dave Darling's going to win a Pro Stock race. So, but what the heck is going on with Mike Brightman? I am so impressed, Sam, with what he's done here in the first 3 weeks. The grit, the determination. I mean, they're celebrating victories like they won the Daytona 500. I mean, the whole crew is coming out to the track. I love it. I think this is exactly what we've been looking for so many years in this Pro Stock division as somebody that's going to go out there and stick up to Dave Darling. And again, I'm not knocking Dave Darling. Don't take this way. Somebody's going to go on Facebook and say, well, Kyle said, I'm telling you, I think this is exciting because there's somebody that's standing up to him and showing him, hey, you're going to have to go through me to beat and win this race. And it's Mike Brightman here, and I'm all for it, Sam.
Totally. I can tell that it's a nice change of pace and a breath of fresh air. And, you know, I know I'm coming new in this season, so I'm not pretending for a second to have the institutional knowledge of, you know, Mike Brightman's past here and just how Dave Darling's reign over the last, 10 years basically has really impacted the community. But, you know, I can just tell from the last 4 weeks, I've seen the shirts, anyone but Darling 2022. It's really becoming something of a meme. I mean, even Dave was wearing a shirt like that. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly.
He was.
So you can tell that people have been pushing. It's totally a Tom Brady Patriots-like syndrome of people wanting and wishing for this change of pace. So, but again, it's only week 3 in the books for these Pro Stocks. It seems like we should have a lot more races in the books. We're almost into mid-June for Pete's sake, but it's only been 3 races. They've been crazy, to say the least. A lot of torn-up race cars, a lot of strong cars who would otherwise probably be contending for these wins and top 5s that get knocked back early or end up going a couple laps down. So, I'm not saying that the winners this season have been directly and totally helped by the carnage and the attrition, but obviously when you only have 12, 13 cars on track and a few of them get washed out early due to attrition, that's that many fewer cars in an already small field that you run the risk of running into and competing and losing time with. So it's all a system, right? There's always an impact based on how early race events impact the end result. So, right. But I mean, clearly Mike Brightman has been showing great pace. I mean, he basically walked away from the field during that 40-lap green flat. Let me try that again. That 40-lap green flag stretch that finished the 60-lapper until Darling caught him. So he certainly has pace and was able to outpace Darling even those last 10, 15 laps when Darling was right on his tail. I mean, they were really nose to tail, Darling trying everything. You want to talk about another bout of clean racing in late models, like we saw in the late model division. It was basically the same thing, another showing in the pro stocks. So it was really great to see the way that finished cleanly. But yeah, other than that, pro stock definitely full of question marks. I know there's, as far as the on track, the conduct or racecraft or whatever you want to call it, I know there's a lot of frustrated individuals and some head scratching going on. Most arguably the teams spending the most money to be there, or the most expensive cars, you could argue. And it just stinks to see cars get torn up so early. So I'm sure they'll get it figured out. But yeah, it was exciting racing, to say the least. And I think there's a lot more fireworks to come from this pro stock division going forward.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see what happens this week, and I'm excited as always. I am somebody that lives for this, like the short track thing, and I've done cup stuff all the way up to the top levels of NASCAR. I live for short track racing. I mean, it's just the reality of this weekly platform is so incredible, and that goes for you, the fans too. Like, you guys come out every week. It's a real kind of cool environment to be part of, and man, I'm really, really impressed with what Brightman's been able to do. Big kudos to him, and they do that as a family, and I think that's a really a big part of this as well. There's a lot of these teams in the pit area that are family. I think we said this last week on the podcast. They're not making it to the NASCAR Cup Series. It's just a reality. I mean, a lot of these guys are not getting there. I'm going to say that out of our current NASCAR Saturday platform, I'd be willing to bet that none of them get to the NASCAR Cup Series. Take anybody that started a feature on Saturday night. They're not going to get there. It's just a reality of it. So for them to do this on a weekly basis is really incredible, and I'm really happy to see it. So anyway, Brightman wins it. Darling second. Martin was third in this one after finishing third in the trucks as well. So he jumped in his other one, got third. Colby Fournier fourth, and Tom Scully Jr. rounded out the top 5 in the number 2. Pro Stocks will be back this week. And before we let you go here on this edition of the Race Day Rewind, let's take a look at what is coming up this coming week. Sam's going to jump in the booth with us on Friday night as well. Brady's not going to be able to make it this week. He'll be back next week. We just chatted with him in our last segment. Sam's going to jump in with us on Friday. We've got 2 races in the Everett's Auto Parts Triple Crown on Friday night. The round 1 for the Everett's Auto Parts Sport Fours, and round 1 for the Nick's Pit Stop Legend Cars. And it'll be round 2 of the Chaz Auto Body Sport Truck Everett's Triple Crown. So we're getting into our second round of Triple Crown racing, which I think is very exciting this week as well. So 35 laps for them on NASCAR Saturday. That should be a good show. Sam, what are we looking for here from your perspective, jumping in the booth on Friday? You watch Friday the first couple weeks here. Is there something that sticks out from either of these 2 nights that you're kind of watching to figure out what's going to happen here over the next couple weeks and get us into the middle of that summer? Because with the way this schedule is platformed out, we're basically racing segments. We raced the first week of May, had a break for a thrill show. We're racing 4 Saturdays in June, break for a thrill show. So then we'll be in July already, and this is going to really fly as we get closer to this playoff system in the middle of the year.
Yeah, Fast Fridays are a lot of fun to watch. So fans, if you're listening, and if you're a Saturday regular and you don't get down there for Fridays, you will not be disappointed with the Friday night bill of entertainment. From the Bandoleros, I mean, watching those kids hop in, and I mean, those cars hop and skitter around coming off of turn 2 and 4. It's, you want to talk about car control at an early age, like those things, those will get your hands moving
True,
fast. So
true.
I, sorry.
No, it's very true. I mean, they're very
Yeah.
difficult to drive, and it's exciting to watch. I agree.
Yeah, and so those are really fun to watch. Really, everything is so incredible. The legends, the speed that they can carry. But we have three back-to-back winners so far with uh, Crystal Murray in the Sport Fours, and then you got Sylvia winning back-to-back in the Bandolero Outlaws, and then Krantz Jr. with back-to-back in the Bandolero Bandits. So you have three win streaks that are going into week 3. So how many of those will stay alive? I don't know. You got to go down Friday night to check it out. I'll be there in the booth. I'm super excited to do double duty this weekend. So that's what I'm watching for Friday and then Saturday. I mean, it's just the next saga, the next episode of the summer-long soap opera, right? Everything we just unpacked. So it's really great racing, and yeah, we hope to see you guys all down there this weekend at some point or another.
It is like a soap opera. That's a great, great metaphor. I like
That's
that.
how Ed put it. A credit to Ed St. Germain on that one.
It is like a soap opera. The track is a soap opera. I am very impressed with everything that's going on so far this year. Again, loving it. Love the connection with the fans here in the podcast. I do get a lot of messages and a lot of comments about the podcast in the pit area. I've talked to some fans about the podcast. We do appreciate you listening, because if you don't listen and appreciate and listen to what we're doing and kind of engage with us, then we're wasting our time doing it. And I appreciate everybody listening, and of course appreciate Sam jumping back on with us this week. And also Brady did a great job jumping on to talk about Fast Friday, so we're very impressed with what's going on here in the podcast. And looking forward to getting a driver back next week. We had somebody lined up for this week, just kind of didn't work. So we'll get a driver back on here next week and kind of get some perspective from a competitor out there on the third mile as well. So we said we were going to shorten up the podcast. We rambled, but that's quite okay. Again, we do appreciate you listening. Sam Tully joining me in this segment. Appreciate him jumping on board. And Brady also joining us in the first segment. Appreciate him being on board. And we appreciate all of you for listening to the Race Day Rewind edition. Again, you can find our podcast wherever you're listening to it right now. Obviously, you found your way there. It's available on Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. If you want to go to YouTube and watch it weekly, there's some photos that flash in and out, maybe a little bit of video here and there, so that'd be cool as well. But a lot of exciting things going on. We got 2 big nights coming up here. June 10th, Fast Friday. June 11th, NASCAR Saturday, headlined by our Triple Crown races. June 19th, we've got the monster trucks in town. Heck of a show they put on at the third mile in the infield. Come check that out. Open Wheel Wednesday, June 29th, $10,000 to win for the Tri-Track Modified Series. A couple other divisions in there. We'll get to that here in the next couple weeks. And the week before that, June 25th, our Pro Stocks are off, and the Pro All-Star Series comes into town for the first time for 150 Pro Stock high-speed laps. That is going to be exciting as well. We'll keep watching that. For this week's edition of the Race Day Rewind, though, so long. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you at the track. I'm Kyle Souza with Souza Media. Thanks to Sam and Brady for joining us, and appreciate everybody listening to the Seekonk Speedway Action Track Podcast and this Race Day Rewind edition. So long, everybody.